Hello guys, I hope you are doing well. And in today's session, we are going to check how to configure a virtual machine with any some type of OS, which is I have already downloaded the ISO files. So basically, on Oracle VirtualBox, we'll try to install Ubuntu server, and which is already I have downloaded. It's around 1.98 GB, so I have downloaded and kept the file available. So let us start Oracle via VirtualBox. And if you are not aware of how to install VirtualBox, you can just go through my previous sessions where I have explained about this Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager installation. So right now I'm going to install a new virtual machine, and once you have launched the Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager, you can click on New. It will launch the Create Virtual Machine wizard, and you can give some virtual machine name, Ubuntu test, which I'm going to give, and the directory is this one, which is taking the default path. And if you want to change that, you can just go to other directory, and this is the default path it is taking, and I'm taking some different path. So this is my default path, and if you want to select the ISO file, it's already taking, I think I have used it previously, so it's showing here, and I'm selecting that. If it is not available, if you wanted to change something else, you can click here and select the ISO file, and that's how it's going to install this one. And that's how we have selected the ISO file, and then just click on next. And this is, if you see here, it's a guest unattended guest OS install setup. You can configure the unattended just guest OS install by modifying username, password, and host name. Additionally, you can enable guest additions install for Microsoft Windows guests. It is possible to provide a product key. So it's some default guest operating system thing configurations, and then just click next. And here you can select the memory of 2 GB and process of one CPU, which is by default it took. So I'm continuing with that. And this is enable EFI, which is for BIOS settings. So I'm taking the default BIOS setting. I'm not going to change that. And if you see here, it's selected like 25 GB for the virtual hard disk. That is where we are going to store this operating system. And right now, for the test purpose, I'm just selecting 20 GB. So if you select pre-allocate full size, it is going to use complete 20 GB space now from our hard disk. I mean from physical hard disk. So I don't want to use it immediately, because whenever the data is writing, it's going to fill that, so that I can manage the space. Right now I'm not selecting that option. And if you have any existing virtual hard disk, you can use it. And right now I'm selecting the fresh installation. So this is like all summary of this configuration which we have selected: the machine name and OS type, and then SSB box user, unattended installation, all those things. And then finish, and it will launch it here. You can just go to settings, and okay, it's powering the VM, so we can't enable it right now. So right now it's powered on, and you can go to the settings. Here I wanted to show you one major thing which I wanted to show here in this Oracle VirtualBox installation. It's a basic system settings of all those things: description and encryption. If we want to, we can enable the disk, but right now the OS installation is in progress. I don't want to do that, and let us first complete that. So just click on show, which is going to this window. I'm just selecting to full mode. Okay. So here it's some prerequisites before installing. It's asking us to select the language and then the keyboard layout, which is like we are okay with this one. And here to select, I mean to install this, we are having like Ubuntu server minimized, so which is going to take less space for this lab purpose and which can happen in faster way the installation. That's the reason I selected Ubuntu server minimized. If required, you can use Ubuntu server to install. And done. And if you see here, it's going to take some ETH and IP address, which is DHCP taking that. And I'm just going with the default settings and I'm not using any proxy address, so I skip that. And it's going to get the required packages from archive.ubuntu.com/ubuntu, which you can see here. It's trying to configure some mirror for package updates, everything. And it's still running. So if you want to wait, we can wait. I'm just continuing, and in the back end it will happen. And if you see here, use an entire disk. That is what we created one virtual disk that is 20 GB, and we are setting up the disk as LVM group. So just done. So here we can see the default mount points which is created here because I selected the unattended installation. So it is going to install everything automatically and it's going to create. And if it require, you can go for advanced installation. We can modify this manually. So right now I'm going with the default settings, which is going to create the mount point and selecting confirmation for destructive action. So it's going to destroy or format the current disk content, and then it's going to create this for partitions, which we are going to do that. So here it's asking, it's something like the profile which we are going to set up, and the first name is your firstly we have to give our name and the server name to test, and the username to log in, and you can type some password over here, confirm the password, done. So it's asking to go upgrade to Ubuntu Pro. For right now, we don't want to use the Ubuntu Pro. I have skipped that for now and continue. And if you want to install, you can choose to install OpenSSH server package to enable a secure. So if you want to do some SSH to the server, it requires a OpenSSH server. Even after installing the voice, we can take the console and we can do that. But for now, I'm just selecting the package by default. It will get installed with the OS. So these all are the package if you want to add additional features. So I don't want to add anything right now. We are just going to install plain OS and done. Now you can see that it's installing the kernel and installing the system, everything. So right now the kernel installation is completed and it's trying to install a couple of packages and which are it's trying to install a couple of packages which is missing or which is required to start our operating system to work, and you can see that it is installing like swap, setting up the swap and apply network config and writing etc fstab file as per the it's writing a etc fstab file as per the partition configuration, and it's trying to install a couple of packages which is missing, and it's trying to install grub to target devices, all those things. It's happening automatically from the backend. And right now it's finalizing system configuration. And also you can see that installing the security updates also it's happening in the backend automatically. I think it's something like sudo apt update, which we used to do to update our packages. It's actually updating all those packages. Right now, you can see that it's a completed the complete installation. So I'm going to reboot the server as the installation update is completed. So right now my server is rebooted, and you can see here it's automatically disconnected the CD drive. So So we are in, and I can find that installation is completed, and I am logging into the virtual machine. So I config. It looks like some configurations done for it looks like it did some SSH configuration, which we selected for OpenSSH, and you can see here the IP address which is showing for ENP0AS3 is 10.0.2.15, something like that, which is automatically configured from DHCP. But here I wanted to explain you one main configuration settings which people will be required to run their virtual machine in isolated or different configurations. So I can go to the settings, and you can just select networks, and you can see here it's enable a network adapter but attached to NAT. But here you have multiple networks. One is a bridge network, bridge adapter, internal network, and then host only adapter, and that's a NAT network. These are the major things which we will be using in VMware Workstation or Oracle VirtualBox. So basically, by default, it used a NAT. And just before going to change those network settings, I wanted to show you one thing. So as per the network configurations which we are going to use this, you can see that host only, internal, bridged, NAT service. So basically like NAT, bridge, internal, and host only. So these are the types of networks which majorly we will be using for our lab purpose. And if you want to configure only the VMs which require inside that virtualization required to communicate, and it should not communicate outside the virtual environment. That means even with our base OS, if you want you, it doesn't require to contact to our laptop also from the virtual machines which is installed inside our Oracle VirtualBox or VMware workstation. You have to select internal. That means it can't communicate to the host, and host can't communicate to the VM, and it cannot get the internet, or it cannot communicate outside network. So it can only communicate within the VMs which are attached to this internal network. That means right now we have installed Ubuntu, and then we install some CentOS or Ubuntu another server, and you want to communicate only to that virtual machine inside that. So it's always better to use the internal. And if you want to communicate with the host as well, then you can go for host only. That means inside the virtualization tool like Oracle VirtualBox or VMware Workstation, those VMs can communicate within the virtualization, and also our VM can communicate to the host, and host can communicate to the VM. That means our laptop can communicate inside this virtualization, and inside this virtualization VM can communicate to our host. So but it cannot communicate outside the network, I mean outside whichever the LAN we are using, or outside our laptop. So it can't get the updates or something like that. It can't download through internet. If you want to get something like wget or something like that, you want to download it directly on the VM, it is not possible with host only and internal as well. So then we have bridge network and NAT network. So NATing is something like it will be using some port forwarding to communicate outside the VM, something like that. And even it can get the network access, I mean internet access inside that, which is currently our system is using. Our configured machine is using NAT service. And there is another one, bridge, which is going to have communication directly with the host, and then with the other VMs inside that virtualization, which is attached to this bridge adapter, and then we have access to the internet as well. So these are the different types of networking modes which we use it on Oracle VirtualBox or VMware Workstation. So that's about some differences of network adapters which we are going to use. Right now it's a NAT. If you want, you can change it to bridge network, which is going to change the IP address and all those things. And if you want to select only host only to communicate only with the host and inside the VM, you can use the host only. which is some type of isolated environment. If you want to completely isolate this mission to not to reach even to that, even to the even to our base mission, or even to our laptops where we are running this virtualization tool, you can select the internal network. So that means it cannot communicate outside the virtualization, and it is completely isolated. You can do whatever you wanted to test or develop anything over there. And as of now it's having only one adapter, so we can modify the we can say only adapter one. If you want to have any other adapter, we can add the other adapter as well, and we can modify that adapter to settings. So that's about this, and you click OK, it's going to use the internal network and it cannot communicate outside. So that's about the networking modes which I wanted to explain it here. And there is one more option, shared folders, where you can share your guest operating system over here. So if you can select some path over here, for example, I wanted to use this virtual missions directory, select this, and folder name it is going to take as virtual mission. And if you want to give some mount point, you can give it from here. If you want to auto mount, read only, all this, or make permanent, you can make the permanent mount as well. So if you click, it is going to show that directory, which is transient folder, which is going to share with our virtual machine inside that. So that's all. And right now the network configuration has been changed. So yeah, that's all about this Oracle VirtualBox VM creation, virtual machine creation, from using some secured or isolated environment and with the different types of network adapters. I hope it is informative for you, and you got some required information to set up your virtual labs using Oracle VirtualBox. And so if you feel this is informative for you, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you in next session of creating virtual missions using VMware Workstation. Thank you.